what comes into your mind when you hear the word drugs? What kind of definition comes into your mind? Do you think negative or positive? Drugs have never been part of my life due to the fact that I was never surrounded by people that use drugs, or my family never talked about that subject, which led me to know absolutely nothing about drugs or even be interested in that subject. It is important to be informed about drugs these days, because nowadays it's hard to identify a drug. I have learned more about drugs at the Almani station by a detective that works with narcotics. The purpose today is to inform you about 3 types of drugs. First, I will start with depressants, then I will discuss stimulants, and finally we will take a look at the over-the-counter drugs. Depressants make you feel relaxed and less tense and less aware of any event you are surrounded by. Depressants reduce the brain level activity. They're depressed because they reduce your brain. Your brain activity and your nervous system and your pulse and your breathing decreases, and it also causes dizziness. Some examples are alcohol, marijuana, heroin. It causes your speech not to be to not understand what they're saying. Their pupils dilate and their coordination is off. So sometimes it causes aggression at home, as you can see right there. That's how your teeth get by smoking marijuana. There's a picture of marijuana. This is heroin, and that's just someone driving under the influence of alcohol. And the website ASU Wellness, Alcohol, and Other Drugs, published on 2016 by, not clear. It says to not drink alcohol under any circumstances. If you're pregnant or nursing, because this causes alcohol poisoning, and you should go to hospital as fast as possible. Now that I have talked about depressant, now I'll talk about stimulants. I have talked, stimulants are drugs that stimulate your brain by speeding it up. These are mostly used at parties to stay awake longer, to be active. Some examples is crystal meth, ecstasy, cocaine, and caffeine. What it causes is blood pressure increases your heartbeat and your blood pressure and your heart rate. These drugs, as I found on the website, the subject stimulants, it states that stimulants applies sexuality and energy, and is also found in food that goes into your metabolism, causing high risk of danger. What this is trying to say is that they're used as a fun activity, that they could be creative and they are pleasure. Here we can see how heroin, crystal meth, we see an example of crystal meth. This is what causes, crystal meth is done by this type of acid, and people start pinching themselves thinking that there are bugs going inside their body, and it causes them to pinch them out because it burns them, so they start hurting their own selves. It also ages fast, as you can see here. And now that I have talked about stimulants, now we'll go over over-the-counter drugs. Over-the-counter drugs are medications that are not prescribed by a doctor. Unfortunately, these drugs are sometimes used wrongly, and they become addicted to it. The reason why they become addicted to it is because it's the type of drug that have chemicals that change the way your body works. This is why they're prescribed, or sometimes not prescribed, because you drink them to have a reaction. Here at an article at the OTC drug abuse, it states that drugs are typically safe if they are use recommended. They're likely legal and prescribed drugs, but they could also be abused, and they are not seen as dangerous because they believe that if doctors prescribe them, they are safe. Now that I have talked about depressants, and then we discussed about stimulants, and we went over the counter drugs, we will wrap this presentation. Hopefully now this concludes and you think that drugs are bad and that they could cause addiction. But now you might ask, why do some people get addicted to it, or why do they need to feel the feeling of being high, lost, or sleeping? It's important to identify a drug or a drug user in order to help others or to help you. It's important to help people with these addictions and help them find the right path, and not make them feel useless or get lost. We all have an addiction, and we all have an addiction to something that takes away the pain. Now, what takes the pain away from you? But this time, think again and do not make drugs be an addiction to you.